stand it or accept it.
Make sure Hobbs gets a copy of this. Watching, Johnny boy? Hope you're paying close attention. Every gesture, every word.
There are certain phenomena which can only be explained if there is a God, and if there are angels, and there are, they exist. Some of these angels were cast down, and a few of the fallen were punished by being deprived.
Open your eyes. Look around sometime.
Darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never share. And no one dare disturb the sound of silence. Fool said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops fell.
1500. Just 230 feet off the coast of the small island of Antikythera, sponge divers discover an ancient shipwreck 150 feet beneath the surface. Over the next 2 years, artifacts are recovered from the wreckage. And among them are the remains of a coral-encrusted metal box that dates back to the 2nd century BC. It is the oldest mechanical computer ever found, predating artifacts of similar complexity by 1,500 years.
So you have this small little box with dozens of cogwheels on the inside, and it has been determined that that analog computer was used to predict astronomical events, and so it was the first computer that has ever been created by mankind.
The American scientists who were studying the Antikythera device actually said that discovering the Antikythera device was like finding a jet plane in the tomb of King Tut. It was so amazing to them. They had never, ever conceived that the ancient Greeks at 200 BC would have had the knowledge of mechanical devices like this. That's completely changed the way we perceive ancient history.
While excavation teams have still not determined for certain the origin of the ship on which the Antikythera mechanism was found, the leading candidate is the island of Rhodes. According to some contemporary accounts, Rhodes was once home to what by today's standards would be considered high technology. In the 5th century BC, the poet Pindar wrote that Rhodes was once adorned with statues that came to life, like living and moving creatures.
He wrote that they all of a sudden became alive. And so the question then arises, well, if you have a lifeless object first, and then all of a sudden somebody breathes life into something, could it be that we have references to some type of machines?
Where did the people of Rhodes get the knowledge of how to create these moving statues 2,500 years ago? I believe that it is just what Pindar said, which is they got it from the gods. Well, who are these gods? The gods are real people. They're extraterrestrials who had this technology, shared it with humanity, and now, when we see the Antikythera mechanism, there's something you can put your hands on that shows that they had the capability to do advanced machine work. It's 1,500 years too early, at least. The point is, that technology really exists, and from a technology like that, going to robotics is not too much further, and extraterrestrials would very well have had that capability for the time, if you believe what this legend says on face value.
Could the Antikythera mechanism be proof that the ancient Greeks had technology far in advance of the times in which they lived? And might this be evidence that there really were functioning robots on the island of Rhodes? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and claim there is also evidence that advanced robots existed 300 miles to the north on another Greek island, Lemnos. Here lie the ruins of Hephaestia, one of the most important cities in Greece. It is named for the Greek god of metallurgy, Hephaestus, who was said to have fallen here from the sky and actually existed on Earth alongside humans.
He's described in his workshop as being surrounded by automated robots. He flips on machines, and they bustle around doing all the sort of the hard, busy work for him.
One of Hephaestus' most famous and amazing creations was Talos, a giant man made of bronze who protected the island of Crete.
Talos was able to observe all of the ships approaching Crete and hurl stones at those ships. And he was able to release this heat and thus incinerating any boat or anything that would come close to him. So is it possible that Talos was some type of a machine or a robot?
Greece isn't the only place where ancient stories can be found about inanimate objects that appear to come to life. The Jewish Talmud describes a clay figure called the golem that could be brought to life by inserting a spell into its mouth. In India, An ancient Sanskrit text called the Lokapanadi tells of spirit movement machines as far back as the 5th century BC. And the Chinese text, the Liezhu, describes a humanoid robot being presented to King Mu as far back as 3,000 years ago.
There are stories from many cultures from all over the planet of people who have either created other humans or machines that were very much like humans.
Within this expansive archaeological site lies the ruins of the Osiris Hall, where thousands would gather to worship the god of the underworld.
In comparison to many of the gods, Osiris was actually thought to have lived physically on Earth as one of Egypt's pharaohs. He is often depicted with a winged disk of the sun. And while many scholars have suggested that this is nothing else but to worship the sun, that sun, as far as the Egyptians were concerned, also had wings, and it descended from the sky. So in my opinion, something else was depicted, an extraterrestrial event that in fact took place in real life.
Although most ancient astronaut theorists believe that the Egyptian gods were, in reality, extraterrestrial visitors, there are many who wonder if Osiris was even made of flesh and blood.
One of the most famous stories that go hand in hand with Osiris was that he was dismembered by his jealous brother Seth.
Seth went into a fury and tore his brother's dead body to shreds, tore it into 14 pieces, had it scattered far and wide all over the kingdom. But Isis, the loyal wife, searched far and wide and found the pieces and pulled it together.
Isis succeeded in resurrecting him. Now, when I hear a story like that a being is dismembered and then somebody puts together those pieces and then they're able to magically resurrect him, I have to ask the question, is it possible that Osiris was not some type of biological entity, but perhaps he was some type of a machine or a robot?
For ancient astronaut theorists, perhaps the strongest evidence that Osiris may have been a robot can be found in the ancient pyramid texts, which describe the symbol of the Djed pillar as Osiris's spine.
Osiris in his resurrected form was portrayed as a pillar that clearly resembles a modern-day Tesla coil. The Djed pillar was considered a power pillar.
In this one carving at Abydos, it is as if Isis has her hand inserted into Osiris's back. And so perhaps it illustrates how she was manipulating Osiris. Could it be that the story of Osiris is something completely different than what we have thought?
You give us everything you have, and therefore we let you live.
And this powerful magic was called electricity. And if anyone tried to use this electricity, God would suddenly appear and destroy them.
Leave your water, and you let me go.
And the people, they became so afraid that they didn't even try to stand up to them anymore, except for one man.
Our offer won't be valid for much longer. Neither will mine.
Turn it off! Turn it off now!
It is said that at the dawn of time, man, beast, and all magical beings lived together under Aeglin, the father tree. But man had been created with a hole in his heart, a hole that no possession, power, or knowledge could fill. And in his infinite greed, man dreamt of expanding his dominion over the entire earth. Many an elf, ogre, and goblin was spilled in their war with man. And King Balor, the one-armed king of Elfland, watched the slaughter in dread and despair. But one day, the master of the goblin blacksmiths offered to build the king a golden mechanical army, 70 times 70 soldiers that would never know hunger and could not be stopped. Prince Nuada begged his father to agree. "Build me this army," the king said. So, a magical crown was forged that would allow those of royal blood to command the Golden Army if unchallenged. I am King Balor, leader of the Golden Army. Is there anyone who disputes my right? And in his throne room, no one challenged his word.
Oh, wait. What if someone could challenge him? Would they have a fight?
Well, most likely a challenge must be answered. But you want to hear the end of this story or not?
Yes, please.
Right. So, the world was changed. A And the next time the humans marched, they felt the earth tremble beneath their feet and saw the sky darken with monstrous shapes. The Golden Army had no remorse, felt no loyalty or pain. And King Balor's heart grew heavy with regret. So he called a truce and divided the crown in 3 pieces, 1 for the humans and 2 for himself. In exchange, man would keep to the cities and the magical beings would own the forests. This truce would be honored by their sons and the sons of their sons until the end of time. But Prince Nuada did not believe in the promises of man, and it is said that he went into exile vowing to return the day his people needed him most. So the Golden Army lay dormant, locked inside the earth, waiting. And there it is to this day, awaiting the day the crown is made whole again, silent, still, and indestructible.
What does it mean, indestructible?
Indestructible.
Indestructible.
Means no one can destroy them. Go to sleep, my son.
But it's just a story, right, Pops?
Is it now?
Yeah, come on. Those guys, they can't be real.
Well, my son, I'm sure you'll find out.
Possibly the most significant event in recent history. We repeat, the Superman exists, and he is American. They call me Dr. Manhattan. They explain the name has been chosen for the ominous associations it will raise in America's enemies. The marketing boys say I need a logo. If I'm to have a symbol, it shall be one I respect.